Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something.
Yeah.
Well, pretty fascinating, actually.
Yeah, what's up?
It's this shift happening in entertainment. There's this unexpected push to cancel Tyler Perry.
Oh, wow. Okay, Tyler Perry.
Right.
But cancel him. Isn't he usually pretty Teflon?
Exactly. And what's really surprising isn't just the idea itself, but who it seems to be coming from.
Okay, I'm listening. Not the usual critics.
No, it looks like it's actually bubbling up from his core female fan base. Astonishingly. His core fans. Wow. Okay, that is a development. So our mission here for this deep dive is to really unpack this whole controversy. It seems pretty complex, multifaceted.
Right.
We need to look at the narrative around how he portrays black women, especially, with his latest Netflix film, Straw, getting attention.
Okay.
And explore all these different viewpoints popping up on social media, viewer comments, put it in historical context, too, with all his work.
Makes sense. And see what it tells us about, like, representation, artistic niches, audience expectations, all of it. It feels bigger than just one filmmaker.
Definitely. And before we dive deep into the films and the portrayals, there's another layer here, isn't there?
Yeah, it's important context, concurrent to all this artistic debate.
Right?
He's actually facing a pretty massive lawsuit, $260 million.
Whoa.
Yeah, for harassment. It's from a male actor on his show, The Oval.
Okay, what are the allegations, briefly?
Well, things like feeling uncomfortable, supposedly flirtatious texts, groping, even being choked and asked if he liked it rough.
Wow, okay.
Now, super important caveat here. These are allegations. Right now, unproven. Just claims in a lawsuit.
Got it. Allegations only. But it's happening at the same time as this other backlash.
Exactly. It just adds this whole other unexpected dimension to how people might be seeing him right now.
Okay, so let's put that aside for now, noted, and dig into the core issue, the criticism from his female fans.
Right. The artistic critique.
The accusations are, well, they're strong. Some women are straight up saying Tyler Perry hates black women.
That's that's incredibly direct.
Or maybe slightly less intensely, that he just consistently shows them in this really limited way, often negative.
And that's the crux of it, right? This widespread critique about stereotypical portrayals.
Yeah.
The feeling you hear a lot is that he pretty much exclusively sees black women as these, like, hardworking, struggling victims.
Victims who need saving.
Exactly. Who are ultimately going to be rescued by a blue-collared black man. That's the trope people point to.
Though, to be fair, some acknowledge, sometimes the characters save themselves or other women help them.
Sure, there's maybe some variation, but the dominant narrative being criticized is that victim rescuer one.
And it's not just the portrayal itself, it's tied to his success. People are pointing out the money aspect.
Oh, yeah. That comes up a lot. The idea that he's managed to make billions of dollars off the backs of black female pain.
Billions off pain. That's a heavy accusation.
It is. And linked to that is the concern that his films show, quote, normal, everyday black women in a lowbrow manner.
Lowbrow.
Meaning kind of basic, lacking complexity, maybe feeding into negative stereotypes. And that's seen as dangerous.
Dangerous because it affects how black women are seen worldwide.
Precisely. Especially when you contrast it with how maybe, Beyonce or Oprah are portrayed in media. Very different image.
Right. So there's this hunger for something else.
A huge yearning.
Yeah.
You hear questions like, where's our Legally Blonde? Where's our Pretty Woman? These aspirational roles.
Even in lighter films, like Bring It On was mentioned.
Yeah, the critique there is even then, black women get stuck as, like, the mean black bully cheerleaders, not the leads in those kinds of stories.
So the feeling is, look, the average black woman is actually thriving now.
Right. Paying her bills, doing her thing.
And she's tired of being shown as, quote, a bottom-of-the-barrel human being.
That phrase really captures the frustration, doesn't it?
It really does. And this repetition, it's not just about stereotypes. It's also about the emotional toll.
Yeah, the fatigue. People are talking about the themes themselves being exhausting.
Exactly. Critics are saying his, quote, obsession with the black female struggle, trauma, needs to be studied.
Needs to be studied. Wow.
Leading to terms like black trauma porn.
Ooh, that's a strong term. Suggesting exploitation of suffering.
Or just, trauma and dysfunction. Over and over.
And this feeling that the newer films like Mia Krupa or Straw it's just no longer getting to the point where it's relatable because fundamentally he's been making the same thing over and over.
The repetition itself is becoming the problem for these viewers.
Seems like it. And the impact is, well, it sounds pretty intense.
It really does. The anecdotes are striking. Women saying watching his movies made their heart feel heavy, caused so much anxiety. Their skin feel heavy and my chest hurt.
Wow, skin feels heavy. That's incredibly descriptive. Physical reactions.
Yeah, left them feeling burdened down or just plain stressed out. It makes you think, doesn't it? The power of these narratives.
For sure. And it leads to the argument, look, he has the money now.
Right? You have the budget, you have the range of writers.
But why not come out with something more than the struggle of women? That's the challenge being posed.
So what's the bigger picture impact here? On self-image, external perception?
Well, the argument, and it's a powerful one, is that Tyler Perry is writing the narrative of Black women for the mass media overwhelmingly.
Overwhelmingly. Because he's so prolific.
Exactly. And therefore, he has a whole lot of control over how Black women view ourselves and, crucially, how the rest of the world views us.
That's a massive responsibility.
Huge, which leads to this plea for him to, well, to heal.
Heal himself.
Yeah, heal what some are calling his wounded feminine energy, or maybe past trauma, perhaps, from his upbringing. You know, his mom, his grandma.
The idea being, if he heals, his writing might change.
That seems to be the hope. So he can write us into our future, make his fictional universe a far more bright place.
And give talented actors like Megan good roles that are inspiring.
Right, instead of characters who always got something wrong. That's the frustration. Always flawed, always struggling.
And the concern extends outward, too, right?
Yeah.
To non-Black audiences.
Definitely. The worry is that for some people, his films might be their main, maybe only exposure to Black people.
Which could lead to, what, misperceptions?
Yeah. Harmful ones. Prejudices. As one comment put it, they'd be so spooked and they'd be looking at you crazy.
Wow. That's, yeah. And some are even suggesting, kind of conspiratorially,
that it's maybe part of his contract.
Yeah, that his studio deal requires him to keep us at a low level, keep portraying Black women in such a low light.
Which sounds extreme, but it shows the depth of the frustration, doesn't it? That people are reaching for explanations like that.
It really does. So the bottom line for this group is rejection.
Pretty much. Strong statements like, Tyler Perry is cut from this household.
And do not watch that goddamn movie. A clear call to boycott.
A very clear call. Okay, so that's the core of the accusation, the upset. Powerful stuff.
But like always in these deep dives, there's nuance, right? There are counter-arguments.
Absolutely. It's never just one thing.
Yeah.
A big counterpoint is, look, he's been on the same wave from the beginning of time.
Meaning, this isn't new. This is his brand.
Exactly. He's consistently told stories from, quote, the plight of the Black woman. That's where he started. Church plays, Christian audience.
Right, drawing from his own experience, being raised by his mom and grandma. This is his lens.
And the argument follows that he has a niche. And in that niche, people gravitate toward it and love it.
So there's still a loyal audience for this specific kind of storytelling.
Apparently so. Many viewers, they know kind of like what they're going to get, and they're drawn to it.
Why? What's the appeal for them?
Maybe they feel like they're not alone in their struggle. They feel he specifically understands where they're coming from. It resonates with their reality or perceived reality.
You mentioned the YouTube host whose commentary we looked at. She had a different take on Straw.
Yeah, she actually said she personally did see the movie Straw and, quote, liked the movie.
Liked it. How did she see it?
She saw it as a story about a down and out person, someone reaching their breaking point. And she felt that was relatable to anyone, really, regardless of gender.
So for her, it wasn't just about the Black woman struggle trope. It was more universal.
That was her interpretation, yeah. Which highlights that people do see his work differently.
Okay. And what about audience behavior historically? This seems like a recent shift in criticism.
That's another key point people raise. There's this sense of shock that women are trying to cancel him now.
Because they supported him for so long.
Exactly. It's pointed out as weird that women were all for it from before. Thinking back to movies like Why Did I Get Married?
Yeah, those are huge.
Huge. And apparently Mia Coppa was also all the rave recently. And the observation is that these same women would defend him fiercely.
Defend him against who?
Against Black men, primarily, who had previously raised similar criticisms about his depictions of men or even of women.
Ah, okay. So there's a history of defending him from criticism, and now the criticism is coming from within that group.
Right, which leads to this kind of provocative question someone posed. Who's watching it? Y'all are, so somebody's lying.
Meaning, If everyone hates it, why are the movies still successful? There's a disconnect between the online talk and actual viewing habits.
That's the suggestion. Or that maybe the critics are loud, but a large part of the audience still wants this type of content from him.
And if he changes, what's he going to do? Does he risk alienating the audience that does still connect with his niche?
It's a real dilemma for a creator with such a defined, successful brand.
Which brings us back to the business side. His model works.
Undeniably. We mentioned the billions of dollars off the backs of black female pain accusation. Well, the flip side is that model has been incredibly profitable.
And actors are still working with him. Taraji P. Henson in Straw.
Right. Reportedly, she felt she was paid enough and appreciated the opportunity, so there are still incentives for talent to participate.
So, does the responsibility, the onus, as they say, really fall entirely on him to change?
That's the question. If the audience keeps watching, keeps making the film's hits, keeps promoting them, can you blame the creator for sticking with what works?
It's that complex loop between creator and consumer again. Who leads, who follows.
Exactly. Now, has there been any balance in his depictions, or is it all just one note?
Well, some acknowledgments were made, like, why did I get married again?
Seen as maybe having a more balanced perspective.
Yeah, because it showed women that was doing foolishness and drama alongside men doing the same. It wasn't solely focused on female victimhood, perhaps.
Okay, so some complexity there.
And generally, the point was made that he has shown women in various capacities, successful, not successful, career women, women dealing with bad relationships, but the core narrative is always the same. His perspective is showing the struggle of the black woman. That's the through line people see.
Even if the specifics vary slightly.
Right. Though one specific counterexample mentioned was the 68 about black women soldiers.
Okay, so not always the same exact struggle narrative, but predominantly.
Predominantly seems to be the consensus critique. Okay, now this next part. The perceived contradictions in the criticism. This gets tricky.
Yeah, this is where the conversation gets really layered. One observation is that it's crazy that the loudest complaints now are from black women.
Why crazy?
Because historically, when the men complain about their negative portrayals, black men always being villains or absent fathers, nobody cared. Or at least the response wasn't nearly as strong or unified from the female audience. That's the perception.
So a sense of double standard.
Yeah.
Or maybe just shifting focus over time.
Could be either. But it leads to this perceived irony that black women often talk about wanting protection, needing better representation, feeling overlooked.
Right.
Yet when Perry does portray women as maybe weak or as victims, perhaps in his view trying to elicit compassion or show vulnerability, the reaction is anger.
So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Portray strength, it's maybe not relatable struggle. Portray struggle, it's seen as negative stereotyping.
That seems to be the tightrope some see him walking or failing to walk. And then there's this really challenging idea floated.
Go on.
That maybe women's actions in real life, what they post on social media, maybe patterns of complaining or, quote, playing victim, might actually be matching the depiction in his films.
Whoa. Okay, that's a really provocative claim. Basically saying the art is imitating life in a way the critics don't want to acknowledge.
That's the controversial idea put forward. And examples were cited to suggest a climate of harsh internal critique among black women.
Like what?
Like Sherry Shepherd getting backlash or canceled for criticizing Megan Thee Stallion. India Arie facing heat for comments about the Essence Festival.
Okay.
Even Felicia Rashad being called a pick-me, which is, a pretty loaded term.
Right. Implies prioritizing male approval.
Yeah. And she was called that just for commenting on women's attire and conduct. So the point being made is that maybe the community itself struggles with diverse viewpoints or portrayals, not just Tyler Perry.
That's a lot to unpack there. The idea that the audience might be part of the dynamic they're critiquing.
Exactly. And it feeds into speculation that, hey, if a new studio came along and did the opposite of Perry.
Showed only positive, thriving black women.
Yeah. Would some women then turn around and tell them to cancel that person too? Maybe for being unrealistic or ignoring struggles? It highlights the difficulty of pleasing everyone.
It underscores this idea of an audience disconnect.
Big time. The argument is that the generation really complaining now, they're oft not the ones who built Tyler Perry. Meaning it was their moms, their aunties, their grandmas who were the original audience, the ones who maybe did find that specific struggle narrative deeply relatable back then.
So as a generational shift in taste and expectation, what resonated before doesn't necessarily resonate now.
That seems to be a huge factor. Okay, so let's try and connect these dots. What does all this tell us?
Well, first off, it just screams how powerful media is, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Shaping how a community is seen from the outside, but also how it sees itself. It's immense influence.
Right, and it really highlights this tension for artists, especially long-term ones.
The tension between sticking to your niche, the thing that made you successful, that maybe comes from your own experience, that your original audience loved.
And meeting these evolving demands from newer audiences, newer generations who want broader stuff, more aspirational maybe?
It's a classic artistic dilemma. How do you stay true to your roots while also growing or changing?
And it forces us to ask, what is positive or authentic representation anyway?
Exactly. Especially for a group as diverse as Black women or any large group. Different people want and need different things from their media.
This whole situation shows there's no single answer. Maybe authenticity requires, like, a whole chorus of voices, not just one dominant one.
That seems likely. And what about the audience role in all this? We consume, we critique, sometimes simultaneously.
Yeah, that dynamic is fascinating. What is that feedback loop, or maybe the lack of a clear loop? If people complain but still watch, tell us.
It suggests the relationship is always being negotiated, right? Between the creator and the consumer. It's not static.
And maybe put some responsibility back on the audience, too, in terms of what they choose to support or amplify.
Could be. Which leads to the idea that maybe we need to look beyond just blaming or praising one creator.
Like Tyler Perry. He's powerful, but he's not the only one shaping narratives.
Right. Who really holds the primary responsibility? Is it just the one big creator, or is it a collective thing?
Involving other artists, critics, platforms, and us, the audience, making active choices.
It feels like it has to be a combination of all those things, working together or sometimes against each other.
So as we wrap this up, here's something to maybe chew on for you listening.
A final thought.
Yeah. Thinking about this whole complex Tyler Perry situation, what does it really mean for an artist to be of the people, to reflect their community?
Good question. Especially when the people themselves change. Their expectations shift, their values evolve.
Exactly. So where does the ultimate power lie in deciding what stories get told, what we see on screen?
Is it the creator with the vision in the studio? Is it the audience with their wallets and their clicks?
Or is it maybe something bigger, like the changing societal currents that influence both the artist and the audience?
That's a deep one. Definitely something to reflect on as you watch. Well, anything, really. How these narratives shape us and how we, in turn, shape them.
No, I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you want to play tough and want to hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up. No, I don't take shit. I